Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to your sleep story. I am Theresa Noye, your radical self-love coach. I work with high-achieving women who typically put themselves last to love themselves enough to put themselves first. You deserve to love, cherish, and honor yourself without guilt because your well-being matters. It gives me great joy to be the voice that guides you into a restful sleep tonight. You are so deeply loved. Your existence is the proof. Before we begin tonight's sleep story, let's start with a relaxation session. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support beneath you. The support of your bed, the floor, and the earth beneath. Imagine the warm sand of a beautiful beach, cradling you, holding you with the earth's gentle strength. Allow that certainty, that solidity, to enable you to release a little more, to sink into this moment a bit more. 9. You are safe. All is well. Allow my voice to be a point of safety for you. Allow my voice to be an anchor that keeps you in a safe space. Know that my voice will only ever bring you into safe places. Feel into your body now. Notice where you might be holding tension. Maybe your feet, your hands, your face, or your belly. Just release it all. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time for it to rest. It deserves rest. 8. Today is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. All you have is now. So thoughts about the day that just was, or days that are to come, don't serve you right now. Allow that realization to enable you to settle into this moment more. 7. This is your moment. You have nowhere to be, nowhere to go. The only place you need to be is here, enjoying this cozy sleep story and the sound of my voice. You deserve it. 6. You deserve it. You deserve rest. You deserve sleep. You deserve to be here. Allow that fact to help you let go a little more. 5. Perhaps allow yourself to feel a little gratitude now. Gratitude for this moment. Gratitude for the ability to rest. Gratitude for the simple things, your breath, the shelter you have tonight, the opportunity to switch off in a place of safety. 4. Embrace the coziness of this moment, the coziness of lying down in a safe space, moving towards sleep in the beautiful act of storytelling. 3. Begin to engage with your imagine now. Engage with your imagination. Picture a beach in the Caribbean, a secluded spot on the beautiful island of Barbados. isolated from the rest of the world, or another favorite spot that you may have. Allow yourself to engage. Bring that picture to mind and check in with your body again. Make sure you're not holding tension anywhere. Release and allow yourself to sink a little deeper to completely let go now as I tell you tonight's sleep story. The Golden Pottery Studio, Chapter 1, The First Turn of the Wheel. She arrived at the little pottery studio just as the evening settled into itself, like a cat circling a cushion before rest. The door chimed a soft bell, and the room greeted her with warmth. A honey-eyed glow poured through a high window, washing the shelves, the wooden tables, and the orderly rows of clay tools in a light that felt like a blessing. Dust motes drifted in the beam, slow as snow in a held breath. She stood still and let her shoulders drop, discovering that the quiet in here was larger than silence. It was a generous hush that made room for her to set down whatever she'd been carrying all day. The air smelled of wet earth and faint lemon soap. She smiled at the wheel in the center of the room, the way it waited with patient confidence, a small altar to becoming. On the workbench, a wrapped block of clay glistened as if the light had chosen it on purpose. She unwound the wire and sliced a piece, thick, cool, and full of possibility, then cradled it in her palms. It gave under her gentle press, willing as bread dough, and she felt an old, kind memory rise in her body, the way steady touch can speak more clearly than words. She placed the clay at the wheel's center and anchored herself on the stool. In the soft hum of the studio, she heard other quiet rhythms, the tick of a wall clock like a friendly metronome, the whisper of fabric as her sleeve brushed the table, the softened beat of her own heart. She pressed the pedal, and the wheel began to turn, not rushed, not slow, simply right. Under her wet hands, the clay warmed and began to listen. She centered it, coaxing it back from its wobble with a patience she rarely extended to herself. The small mound steadied and seemed to exhale. Her desire this evening was simple, almost small enough to slip between the floorboards. She wanted to know what the night wished to shape through her. Not a grand question, not a demand, just a listening. She let the wheel spin and imagined the golden window as an open ear, light leaning in to hear the same thing. The touch became a conversation. The clay rose at her asking, then settled, then rose again, taller this time, like a tide remembering the moon. Her breath matched the wheels turning. She noticed how effort softened into presence when she followed the clay instead of controlling it. It was like walking beside a stream rather than paving it. The bowl to be opened under her thumbs, a quiet flower, and she wondered How many times she pushed herself beyond gentleness when what she really needed was this: warm rhythm room. She glanced around and saw beauty everywhere in the ordinary. Sponges with rounded edges, the color of river stones. Brushes with bristles still splayed from the last wash. A jar of wooden ribs, each one curved like a smile. Even the drips on the slop bucket looked like tiny constellations. It occurred to her that this room was not asking her to perform. It was inviting her to receive. The thought drifted through her like a feather falling. No hurry, no noise. Then came to rest somewhere deep and bright. The clay remembered her hands. Her hands remembered the clay. They met in a place that wasn't thinking and wasn't forcing. A soft radius where the bowl's lip grew thin as a horizon. She watched the walls lift and round with the steadiness of sunrise, the form gaining strength by yielding. Each pass of her fingers smoothed what did not belong and blessed what did. The wheel sang a low vowel that sounded like the body's favorite word, oh. In that sound, she sensed an answer forming, not in speech but in feeling. Tonight wanted ease. She checked in with her posture, jaw loose, shoulders quiet, spine long as a line in a prayer. The studio felt larger now, as if the golden light had stretched to fit her calm. A vase on the far shelf seemed to nod. The clock ticked like a heartbeat a room away. She let water spill from the sponge and watched it ripple across the spinning clay, tiny rivers that brightened the surface and then vanished, as reassuring as a hand passing through hair. She could have measured, perfected, trimmed the rim into exactness. Instead, she chose kind. A slight ripple at the lip remained, like a signature of breath. She liked it, the way a small irregularity told the truth. A human being, alive, had touched this. The bowl cup between her palms felt surprisingly light. She slowed the pedal, and the wheel quieted until the vessel stood still. A moon risen and resting on its own glow. She lifted it with both hands and set it on a wooden bat to dry. In the high window, the last light thinned into a soft ribbon, and she felt herself mirrored in the bowl, open, held, enough. The studio offered a gentle hush, as if to say, there is time, there is room, there is grace for every shape you become. She rinsed her fingers in the basin, watching the clay trace lacework patterns before clouding the water. As the ripples settled, so did she. The night, she realized, had already answered ease. The word moved through her like warm tea. She dried her hands, breathed once more, and turned back to the wheel, ready to let the next quiet question arrive on its own, like a bird landing in an open palm. Chapter 2. The Soft Lesson of Center. She returned to the wheel as if rejoining a conversation that had been waiting with a smile. The studio's golden light had deepened, mellow as apricot tea, and the shadows it cast were kind, rounded, unsharp, like the edges of a dream that knows how to soothe. She cut another portion of clay and held it for a moment, simply feeling its quiet weight. It was cool in her hands, like river stone and shade, but under her palms it warmed, the way a thought grows friendly when you let it sit beside you. This time, she wished to explore center, not as a task, but as a feeling. She set the clay down and wetted her hands. The wheel turned, steady as a heartbeat, and she let her breath follow. To center the clay, she leaned forward with gentle conviction, guiding it toward stillness within motion. There was a sweet moment. The instant the wobble dissolved and the clay aligned, humming under her palms like a content cat. She recognized the sensation, alignment without effort, presence without pushing. The kind of quiet she had wanted for years, but often tried to earn instead of allow. The studio seemed to notice. The high window's light gathered itself into a soft bar across the table, and within it, dust drifted like slow confetti, celebrating nothing in particular and therefore everything. A brush rested in a jar inside a wooden rib, companions in the shared vocation of smoothing. On the far shelf, a cup with a slightly uneven foot looked oddly proud, reminding her that usefulness doesn't have to be symmetrical. She smiled back at it, then returned to her hands, which now moved as if they had always known the way. She pressed, anchored, lifted, and the clay rose with obedient grace, like a tide remembering the moon's name. When a faint tremble appeared, she softened her touch rather than strengthening it, and the tremble melted as if reassured. The form opened, a quiet bell of earth widening to receive air. The lip thinned, fine as a whisper, and she ran the damp sponge once around, smoothing the sentence the clay was trying to say. The wheel murmured, and in that low sound, she heard something like a blessing. You can trust the middle. At the basin, she rinsed her fingers and watched cloudy spirals dissolve into clarity. Even the water knew how to let go. She returned and tried an experiment, closing her eyes for a few breaths while the wheel turned. Without sight, her hands became eyes. She felt small ridges, tiny waves, a place wanting support. She answered with pressure as subtle as a yes said in a library, and the surface evened. When she opened her eyes, the vessel looked calmer, and so did she. Her simple desire expanded a little, like a window raised another inch to invite more breeze. What other centers were waiting to be found? She noticed the way her feet met the floor, arches soft, weight balanced. She adjusted the stool to ease her hips, and her spine lengthened like a string pulled gently through pearls. In that micro adjustment, her breath softened, the way a lake goes glass when the wind sighs elsewhere. Center, she realized, is an atmosphere you can make. She trimmed the base with a loop tool, listening to the delicate sandy hush it sang as ribbons of clay curled away like peels from a sweet fruit. The air took on a faint mineral scent that felt clean and honest. She paused to admire the trimmings, little commas of earth, thinking how punctuation shapes meaning. These quiet edits made the piece stand on its own with more ease. She liked the metaphor. Remove just enough, and the form can carry itself. Setting this vessel beside the first, she saw a family beginning, a gentle conversation between shapes, the bowl soft at the lip, and this new cup, straight-shouldered but tender at the waist, seemed to regard each other with understanding of siblings who share the same lullaby. She felt a bright, harmless thrill in her chest, a child's delight at a secret well kept by ordinary things. She centered a third piece, smaller this time, thinking perhaps of a vase that would hold a single stem, one wildflower found on a walk, one sprig of rosemary cut while dinner simmered. The idea felt like a sigh of permission. Beauty, here, now, enough. As the walls lifted and tapered, she imagined the stem, the water, the way light would glance through the window and turn the water gold. It was already lovely, inside her and in front of her, doubled like reflection. When she finished, she slowed the pedal until the wheel stilled, the studio's hush enlarging to fill the pause. The clock's gentle tick-tick felt like a hand rubbing slow orders on a back. She laid a damp cloth over the pieces, tucking them in for their first short sleep. The golden bar of light had softened to a warm halo, as if the room was exhaling, and she realized she was too. Center, she thought again, tasting the word like honey, not a point on a map, but a way of moving, not a trophy, but a tone. She stood, rolled her shoulders, and let the feeling ripple through her, spacious, grounded, bright. The night had offered another answer, as quietly as a note set on a table. You are allowed to be steady. With that assurance settling like velvet in her chest, she turned toward fresh clay and a deeper kind of listening. Chapter 3: The Beauty of Slow Drying. The studio grew even softer as evening unfolded, like a ribbon unspooling across a table. The golden light through the high window was dimmer now, deepening into a warm amber that made everything in the room look like it was holding a memory. The new vessels rested beneath their damp cloth, shapes breathing into themselves in quiet patience. They were not finished yet, but they were becoming, and she could feel that something in her was becoming too. She wiped the wheel clean slowly, as though the act itself was a prayer. The cloth moved in gentle circles, following the same rhythm her hands had found when shaping the clay. Even the simple act of cleaning felt like part of the art. No rush, no need to finish quickly, no expectation. Just presence, like a candle flame steady in still air. The studio held its silence with affection, the kind that made her feel not alone, but accompanied. Shelves lined the walls, filled with pieces in every stage of their journey. Some barely more than formed shapes waiting for their first dry. Some trimmed, carved, burnished. Some already glazed in soft colors: sage, sand, moon white, and the pale blue of morning sky before the sun fully wakes. And some, already fired and shining, rested proudly like elders at a family gathering, gentle witnesses to all that would come next. She walked slowly among them, her fingertips hovering just above their surfaces as if greeting each one with a nod of reverence. Every piece seemed to hold a story, not dramatic, not grand, but deeply human. A thumbprint left in the curve, a slight lean where the form had once wobbled, a glaze drip that ran just a bit further than intended. They were imperfect in the most honest way, and it made them beautiful, alive, true. She paused at a small mug on the top shelf, its surface adorned with tiny impressed stars, scattered like constellations. It made her think of all the ways she had once rushed, always striving, always perfecting, always managing instead of allowing. Her days had often felt like sprints, her mind full of checklists, her shoulders carrying more than any person should try to hold alone. But here, time behaved differently. It widened, it stretched, it softened. It felt generous. She sat again at the workbench, though not at the wheel this time. She opened a fresh slab of clay onto the wooden board, pressing it gently with her palms. The clay spread slowly under her hands, like dough yielding to warmth. She took up a wooden rolling pin and began smoothing the clay into an even sheet. The motion was unhurried, almost musical, like the rise and fall of a lullaby's melody. Forward, back, breathe. Forward, back, breathe. She wasn't making anything in particular now. She was simply listening. A thought came, not as a command, but as a soft curiosity. She took a small flower stencil from a drawer, dipped it lightly into water, and pressed it into the clay. The pattern imprinted beautifully, a single petal shape with feathered edges, delicate as a sigh. She pressed again, making a quiet ring of blossoms, not too many, just enough to feel like spring. She could have turned this into a plate, or a tile, or a wall hanging. But instead, she simply let it be what it was for now, a moment of joy made visible. She lifted the clay gently and laid it on the board to dry, joining the vessels she had made earlier. They looked like companions in rest, each with its own way of being, each held in its own gentle process. She brushed a fingertip along the edge of the bowl and felt how the clay was firming, the way something soft begins to remember its shape when given time. She remembered then she too was learning to dry softly, slowly, to hold form without hardening, to settle into alignment without rushing to the final kiln, to pause without losing purpose. She sat back and placed her hands in her lap. A warm ease radiated from her chest, spreading outward like sunlight waking a field. The night was offering another quiet answer, this one tender and timeless. Becoming doesn't require hurry. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing the scent of earth, light, and calm. And when she opened them again, the studio seemed to glow from the inside, as though every vessel, every shelf, every quiet corner was whispering the same soft truth. There is beauty in unfolding slowly. Chapter 4. The Golden Glaze Evening. The evening deepened into a gentle dusk, the kind that rests slowly on the skin rather than settling heavily. The high window now held twilight, lavender, gold, and the faintest trace of rose, layered like silk scarves, drifting one over another. The studio seemed to glow from within, warm and alive, as if the light itself had learned how to breathe. She moved slowly about the room, lighting a small candle on the shelf near the drying pieces. Its flame fluttered, then steadied, casting a warm amber that mingled with the remnants of daylight. The flame felt like companionship, just a quiet presence, nothing more required. Beneath its glow, the clay pieces looked almost luminous, their surfaces reflecting a promise of what they would one day become. Before her on the work table sat several jars of glaze. Some held glassy liquids the color of rain-washed stone. Others shimmered faintly like pearls hidden in water. One jar in particular caught her eye, a golden glaze that seemed to hold sunlight inside it. Not bright like midday, but warm like late afternoon. the hour of soft understanding. She lifted the lid and stirred slowly with a wooden stick. The glaze thickened and swirled, ribbons of deep honey folding into themselves. The movement was hypnotic, round and round, like a lullaby sung in circles. She dipped her brush gently and let the excess drip away in slow, thoughtful beads. Her first piece of the night was that small vase meant for a single stem. She lifted it, holding it as one might hold a small bird, careful, attentive, tender. The clay had firmed just enough to welcome the glaze. Not too soft, not too hard, just right. She smiled, realizing how many moments in her life had been waiting for a just right. She never paused long enough to notice. She brushed the golden glaze around the vase's surface in patient strokes. The sound was soothing, soft, whispering, like the faint hush of leaves moving in early morning air. Each stroke felt like a gift to the piece, and perhaps to herself. She did not aim for evenness or flawlessness. She simply brushed until the surface felt like yes. The vase gleamed under the light, not shiny yet. That part would come later, after the fire, but glowing in the way hope glows when it's quiet and steady. She set it aside and reached for the bowl. Its soft, slightly uneven lip looked like the beginning of a story. She dipped the bowl gently into a different glaze, a milky, moon-colored one. When she lifted it out, slow droplets gathered along the edge and fell back into the jar like tiny bells of sound. She let them fall, allowed the bowl to find its finish without interference. As she worked, she noticed the quiet inside her growing larger, like a room expanding in all directions, a calm without vacancy, a fullness that didn't need to be earned. She picked up the cup next, the one with the straight sides and the softened waist. She imagined warm tea in the cup on a quiet morning, steam rising like a prayer. She dipped just the rim into the golden glaze, letting it kiss the top edge in a thin, shimmering line. It reminded her of sunrise meeting horizon, light touching form, gently claiming what it loves. Her desire for the evening unfurled in her chest like a soft blossom. She wanted to feel herself soften into the moment without reaching ahead, without planning what came next, without preparing for future demands. Just now, just here, just this warm room, this gentle work, this quiet joy. She rinsed her brush, listening to the water ripple. She wiped her hands on the linen cloth she kept folded near the wheel. its fibers worn and familiar, like the shoulder of an old friend. She breathed deeply and felt her ribs expand with ease, as though they had been waiting their whole lives for this one slow inhale. The studio seemed to sigh with her. The shelves, the tools, the resting clay, all of it felt like a shared exhale. The world outside continued. Yes, the lists, the responsibilities, the expectations, they still existed somewhere beyond these walls. But in this room, time was generous, space was kind, and nothing needed to be proven. She looked at her glazed pieces and saw not perfection, but presence made visible. Hands that had moved gently, a heart that had listened, a woman who had allowed herself, even for a little while, to be simply here. And that, she realized, was enough, more than enough. The golden glaze on the rim of the cup caught the candle's flame and held it like a small sun. The light trembled, but did not disappear, and neither did she. Chapter 5. The Kiln's Quiet Promise. The studio was nearly fully dusk now, the golden light replaced by gentle evening blue. The candles still flickered, casting soft shadows that swayed like slow dancers against the shelves. She moved quietly, almost weightless, as though the room itself were holding her. Her vessels, bowl, vase, cup, rested on their wooden boards, each wearing its new coat of glaze like a dream not yet spoken aloud. At the far end of the studio stood the kiln, tall, still, and unassuming, like an old friend who knows when not to speak. Its door was slightly ajar, waiting. It did not glow with heat yet. It only waited, a presence, patient and sure. She walked toward it gently, slowly, carrying the first piece, the vase with the golden glaze. It sat in her palms with the lightness of a breath and the gravity of a story. As she approached the kiln, she felt the shift in the air, the way the world seems to lean in when transformation is near. There was no rushing here. Firing was a process of time, heat, and surrender. One could not hurry a flame into maturity, nor could one negotiate with temperature. The kiln revealed truth, and it did so gently or fiercely, depending on how willing one was to yield. But tonight everything felt gentle. She placed the vase inside, carefully, like setting a note into a secret drawer. The shelf inside accepted it without judgment, just space, just readiness. She returned for the bowl next. The moon-colored glaze shimmered faintly as she lifted it, and she noticed how the slight irregularity of the rim made the whole shape feel alive, like a held breath or a whispered prayer. She placed it beside the vase. Then the cup, simple, honest, touched by the soft rim of gold. It felt like a quiet morning waiting to happen. She set it in the kiln, and as she let her hands fall away, she felt something warm ripple in her chest. Not pride, not relief, something softer, something like belonging. She stood before the kiln for a long moment. The pieces were inside now, no longer in her hands, and yet still part of her. The firing would come later, when the time was right. Not now, not yet. Transformation does not begin simply because we wish it to. It begins when the clay is ready, when the glaze is settled, when the fire can do its work without strain. She realized with a clarity that felt like a warm cloth laid across her heart. She too did not need to rush her becoming. She had been taught for so long that transformation required urgency, that growth meant effort, that healing meant discipline, that progress meant productivity. But here, in this humble studio of earth and water and flame, the truth was simpler, kinder, and far more ancient. Becoming happens in its own time. The kiln did not ask for worry. It did not require monitoring. It did not need her vigilance or searching thoughts or plans. When the moment came for fire, it would come. And the pieces would change, slowly, steadily, into something that could hold water or flowers or warm tea, or nothing at all except their own quiet presence. She stepped back, feeling her breath soften. Her hands hung loose at her sides. Her jaw was released. Her chest was open. She felt herself like wet clay, still forming, still soft enough to change, but solid enough to hold shape. The candle's flame flickered low now, growing smaller, but still bright. She walked back to her stool and sat, simply sitting, not thinking of what came after, not preparing for tomorrow, not composing the next moment, just breathing. She looked around at the studio one more time. The scattered sponges, the brushes with dried glaze at their tips, the shelves of vessels in every stage of their becoming, the wheel quiet and still, like a heart at rest. Everything in the room was exactly what it was, not striving, not apologizing, just being. A warmth spread through her, gentle as a hand on the back, familiar as love. Not everything needs to be finished to be whole. Not everything needs to be hardened to be real. Not every part of you needs to be fire tested to be worthy. Some things, like tonight, are already complete. She let the stillness settle around her like a blanket, and the kiln stood quietly, holding her pieces and her peace alike. Chapter 6, The Warm Quiet of Completion. Night had settled fully now, deep and velvety, wrapping the studio in a hush that felt almost sacred. The candle's flame had grown small, a slow pulse of light in the corner, and the high window now held only darkness with a faint echo of the moon. The kiln stood closed and silent, its work waiting for another day. Nothing more needed to happen tonight, and yet the night felt full, rich, complete, like a long exhale finally released. She moved to the center of the room and sat cross-legged on the wooden floor. The wood was warm from the day's sun, and it held just enough heat to feel alive. She rested her hands on her knees, palms open, not in expectation, not in offering, just open, available, present. There was a softness in her body that she had not felt in a long time, a loosening, a remembering. Her breath flowed in and out like the tide of a lake whose surface meets the sky. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Everything was natural. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the space around her, the air, the quiet, the faint scent of clay lingering on her fingertips. It was as though the world had become a bowl and she was resting peacefully inside it. She thought about the pieces resting in the kiln, not yet finished, not yet hardened, not yet glazed by fire, and yet already beautiful, already worthwhile, already part of a gentle unfolding. She realized she had spent so much of her life in the space before completion, always somewhere between what was beginning and what was becoming, always mid-formation. And she realized that this in-between, this soft place of almost, had always felt like something to hurry through, something unfinished, something not yet enough. But tonight, surrounded by warm clay and golden memory, she saw something new. The in-between is its own kind of wholeness. The moment before the bowl is fired is not lesser. It is simply tender. The moment before clarity is not confusion, it is curiosity. The moment before becoming is not lack, it is invitation. She allowed this understanding to settle in her chest like a warm stone placed gently over her heart, a grounding, a truth that did not need to be spoken to be known. There was no need to rush her own unfolding, no need to arrive before she was ready, no need to demand completion from a heart that was still softening. Softness was not weakness, it was openness. Softness was possibility. Softness was life in motion. She placed one hand on her heart and one hand on her belly. Her palms felt warm against her skin. She breathed in deeply, letting her ribs expand like a vessel taking shape on the wheel. She then breathed out, feeling her body settle into itself like clay finding center. The studio around her glowed with a quiet belonging. Everything had its place. The wheel, the tools, the shelves, the drying board, the kiln, and her exactly where she needed to be. No adjustments, no striving, no performance, just being. She whispered a thank you, not to any one thing, but to the evening itself, to the clay, to her own hands for remembering how to feel, and to the quiet voice inside her that had finally been given room to speak. It said only this: you are allowed to rest into yourself. You are allowed to evolve gently. You are allowed to be unfinished and still be whole. The candle flickered out softly, naturally, as though it agreed. She stood slowly, her movements unhurried, and took one last look at the room. The golden glaze on the cup's rim caught just the faintest echo of moonlight through the window, a tiny shimmer, a reminder that light does not disappear, it only changes shape. She smiled, knowing she had changed shape too. Not through effort, not through striving, but through softness, through presence, through the simple act of allowing herself to be. She stepped toward the door, leaving the studio exactly as it was, peaceful, open, waiting for tomorrow. And as she walked into the night, she carried with her a quiet promise, warm and steady in her chest. She would move through the world the way her hands had moved through clay, gentle, present, unhurried, whole.